Crafting can be such a lonely activity sometimes, so why don't you grab your project, come join me on the couch, and let's craft together. Today I am working on some spinning, so I'm using the Ashford eSpinner 3 and I'm setting it up right here. You can see I've got the leader yarn there, and I'm going to spin the second bobbin of some fibre that I hand dyed myself in this really fun purple, orange, grey colourway. And while I'm spinning today, I'm going to be chatting with Car as part of our podcast called Ministry of Crafty Shenanigans. And this chat comes from season 3. And I hope you enjoy this conversation on the evolution of creativity and how our creative process has changed over the years. I hope you enjoy. We are coming to you today, recording on what should be the best day of the year. We should be packing our bags, hitting the road for quilt camp, a whole weekend of chatting and crafting and doing all the things. Unfortunately, we're not, because all the everything. But
Yeah.
it's I think we're planning on still doing some stuff from home. And one of the best things about camp is, aside from seeing each other's faces, but it's also a really great time to kind of dabble in lots of projects and be inspired by each other.
It is. And today we have got a really good one about evolution of crafts. And I read out my quick synopsis to you because I write out a synopsis before our episode. And the last line got you.
It did. It did. We had a minor argument over who's the bad influence in this relationship. Pretty sure it's not me.
Yeah, no, it's you.
No, I'm pretty sure it's you.
No. No, because, I wrote that line came at the end of my synopsis, people. So we're going to start at the end today instead of the beginning.
We're going to work backwards.
Quick side note, my beginning was very much focus on individual crafts. And then I met you, and it was all the crafts. And therein lies the answer to that you are the worst influence.
Well, see, I could nearly say the same thing. And I think that's the joy of finding someone who gets your version of creativity, which we discussed a couple of weeks ago. It creates this synergistic energy where you feed off each other, you inspire each other. Even if you're not working on the same projects, it's really fun to have someone who will support you whatever you're doing. I remember, it must have been last year, you were doing one of your art classes and you shared the topic of one of your classes and you shared a little bit of your project you were working on. And I remember looking at that, and I think I even said to you, "Oh, that's just given me the best idea for a project." I'm not even in that class. And so from your wizard art journal, I ended up making a Harry Potter themed zine,
Yeah, isn't
which
that
was,
funny how we just bounce with ideas?
yeah, so we don't even need to be doing the same thing, but one can inspire the other, and we kind of just feed that creative energy. Even if they're kind of semi-solitary crafts like art journaling and zine making, and even like our quilting and stuff, like generally speaking, they're kind of reasonably solitary pursuits, but somehow we've managed to turn it into this group effort.
Actually, we've calmed down a little bit, I feel, in the group effort lately. And I don't know if that's that we're running out of crafts to inspire each other with, or if we've just basically tried everything along the years, or if we're just a little bit tired at the moment and
I
basically
think
doing
it's
a
that.
Dory, just keep swimming, just keep swimming.
Yeah, I think in 2022, a lot of it is just encouraging each other to do the days and
And
find whatever snippets of creativity you can to keep your head above water.
yeah.
There's a lot going on. But we did like our cross stitches.
We
So
did.
I know you and I didn't do the same, but we both had a cross stitch partner in common, a mutual cross stitch partner in both of those. And I guess we kind of encouraged each other as we were doing our own projects. And we had like the gnomes.
The what now?
The gnome.
The,
I don't
no, I don't
know.
remember that one.
Nah, don't recall that one. So I think it's just
Yeah.
changed, hasn't it, over the years, how we connect on a project level. But and I think that's part of growth too. We talked a little bit about growth and contentment last episode, the episode before. And I think that is too, in that we're kind of, as we're growing and becoming more confident both in our crafting and in our friendship, we don't feel that FOMO, that need to jump on every group project so that we fit in and we don't miss out.
Speak for yourself. I still get the FOMO.
I think we all get the FOMO at times, but
We
I
do.
don't know. It could be different for you, but I don't feel the pressure that I want, internal pressure, not from the group, I will say. I will clarify. But from myself, I don't feel that pressure that I need to jump in on every single project. I know
Mm.
that even if I don't do the quilt, or if I don't do the cross stitch, or I don't do the art journal class, it's not going to impact how we connect.
Well, we're not telling you about the cross stitch until after we're like 3/4 done. So then we don't feel like we're 5 years behind you and your speedy finishes. But if it has gnomes in front of it, you will jump. I know you'll jump. Now,
Yeah.
isn't that funny? Like the cross stitch. So the gnomes last year was cross stitches, which we have mentioned before, and you have brought yours back out again for this year.
Yep.
I managed half a Christmas gnome, and I did a coffee gnome for somebody else. So I didn't actually
That was
finish a
cute.
gnome for me. Back in the day, circa 1990, 2000, I was cross stitch focused, and I got more done back then than I managed to get done now, because I think my evolution of crafts has just, instead of going up and doing more intricate patterns, I've gone wide. And I've done not just the gnomes cross stitch, but like all the other crafts on the side. So I'm a bit of a dabbler now, and that's my evolution over the years. Is just dabble in this and dabble in that, which makes your craft room a mess.
I'm
Please
hearing
know
you.
that if you are going to follow us down the rabbit hole of evolution going wide, your craft room will become a black hole of everything.
Absolutely. I need to go reorganize my shelves yet again.
Did you finish your spring clean?
What spring clean? Moving on. It's a pain, isn't it, to have those kind of that overfull craft room. But for me, the blessing of that is having evolved my crafting life through all these different stages and hobbies, is I've got this really wide collection of tools for a start, but also
Cool.
for kind of the basics of almost everything that I've tried along the way. So that now, if inspiration strikes, chances are I've actually got either what I want or something I can MacGyver into, or I only need to get one or two things, which kind of
Yes.
makes new crafts and evolving into new ways of creativity, it makes it reasonably accessible. I say, as I come to it from a position of privilege of 30 odd years of collecting from a child till now, and
And lots of tools.
lots of tools, but it makes it more accessible than if I was starting from scratch, might be what I'm trying to say,
Yeah.
which isn't going to work for everyone. But for me, it makes it more accessible.
I actually have MacGyvering of tools. I take my tools and I use them for everything else. So back in the day, I used to do a lot of quilting. Never really done any quilting in my life until I had a baby. And then all of a sudden, it was like, I am going to be a quilter and I'm going to make her one quilt. And then I made all the babies around me quilts. I still quilt, but I don't do that as much anymore.
So tell me what you use your sewing machine for then.
Paper, leather, leather. I will sew journals. I'll sew the canvas on the journals on the outside, pretty much whatever goes. Which, when I bought my sewing machine, the girl that was there that sold it to me, she said, "Oh, these are really good." And I said, "Oh, how does it go with just, if I want to put a little bit of paper through?" And she goes, "Oh, check this out." Picks up a piece of paper, and I'm like, "Oh, yay!" Yes, I bought a quilting machine and I sew paper on my quilting machine. And I know people around the world will be like freaking out right now, but the machine is 13 years old and it hasn't missed a beat. The other thing I do though is my quilting rulers. When you get into
Yes.
quilting, there's a lot of rulers that you've got to buy. I use it all for paper now. I cut paper, I cut journals, and I use all my quilting rulers, my quilting roller.
Did you see what I used my quilting ruler for during the
No,
week?
what did you use it for?
To cut icing to decorate my daughter's birthday cake.
See, I would draw the line at that. That's just cross contamination.
It worked brilliantly. Did you not see the scarf?
I saw the scarf. I just thought you knitted it. I wonder if you could.
Yeah, it does make for quite messy craft rooms just having so much stuff. Some of it I haven't touched for years, but it's nice to know it's there. For me, a bit like you, I've been crafting since I was a small child. I do remember one Christmas, one of my favorite gifts. This is really still stuck in my head. So, my parents bought a hat box, and inside lots of little craft bits. So there was thread and there was felt and I think there was paint and paintbrushes and there was beads and there was pencils and crayons and there might have been some sequins and some stamps and an ink pad. It was basically just a craft kit in a box. And it was like the best present because there was just so much fun stuff I could do with it. And so I've always been a dabbler like that. For me, my evolution of crafting kind of goes in stages like that. I will do kind of general craft and then I will do cross stitch and then I will do knitting. And so I've kind of always gone through stages, and I think my evolution is almost circular in a way, in that I just keep kind of cycling through similar projects, but over time, a bit like you, I've gone wide and I've added different things. I think a couple of the two most random things I've bought supplies for or tried. One is lamp work beads, which I've made a couple of them. It's a work in progress. I need to wait till I've got space to do it again. And the other really random one, shoemaking.
Well, I was making journals, so I cannot judge you on your shoemaking. If I started making shoes, I probably wouldn't have finished making the shoes because what's a finish these days?
Speaking of your journals, okay, so while we're talking about evolution of craft, let's talk about your journals. I know that you've said in a previous episode you've always kind of journaled in a diary sense. When did you first kind of start getting into the actual, like the art journaling instead of the diary style journaling?
Okay, so I always loved art. When I was at high
Yep.
school, I had a teacher that basically said, you kind of suck at art, so don't follow that path.
I had
I
one of those
still,
too.
I know, I still tried to do like little drawings and stuff, but my brother and my dad had all the art, they had all the art skills in the family, and I felt like I just missed out. I remember when I left school, I got my first job, and one of the very first things I did was went to Target and I bought 120 pack of Derwent pencils, the big tin. Basically, always just dabbled, but I always sucked. I think back in the day, it was Elsie and I think it was Rachel did a
Yes, a
class.
beautiful mess.
Yeah, A Beautiful Mess. And I think it was when she was back
Yes.
with doing stuff with Rachel. They did an art journaling class online and I signed up to that. And again, it was that community thing where a few of the girls in the quilting group joined up as well. I loved it, absolutely loved it. My pages looked terrible and I didn't care because it was hitting something within me that was just giving me an expression that was not just words. And when I found out that I could actually put art stuff with words, my world just basically, my head exploded and everything exploded along with it. And it's been a journey basically to find the right paper and the right journals that actually work for me. But I think I'm kind of settled now on what works, which, spoiler alert, is pretty much every journal you can think of. I do need to fix that because the room's getting a little overloaded.
And your daughter's quite arty as well, isn't she? I know she does
She is.
art at school.
So yeah, my daughter is doing art at high school, and I did warn her that it was going to be very difficult because you're getting marked on your art, and you're going to be like, people will question it and look at it and judge it basically because it's got to be marked with high school work, obviously. But yeah, she's doing word art this term, and she showed me her piece last night, and it looks phenomenal so far. So basically, in a nutshell, what she's done is done old papers from school and she's put a grey background on them. So once she's done all the words in the dark space, she's actually doing like little bubbles around with pictures of everything that she loves and they're all coloured. So she's going to paint all the bubbles and then do a 3D element on them. And so far, it's looking really, really powerful.
I love how it's got bubbles because I'm actually working on a new project
Bubbles.
at the minute on bubbles. So, one of my prompt lists that inspire me over October had a prompt of bubbles. And I thought, oh, I could do like this piece where I have photos turned like inside a bubble as part of a bigger photo. And then I went to think about how I wanted to do the background photo. And then I thought, oh, do you know what would be really cool? So this is the evolution of a project. This entire project is literally about the evolution of the last 3 years, from December 2019 drought and fires through to today as I sit and watch the rain and the floods. In between that, there will also be bubbles of my projects of the last 3 years floating up and through it, and how I've evolved throughout the last 3 years. So that's a really fun visual of evolution in crafting, I think.
It is. You're going to need a bubble machine for that, because there was a lot of finishes over the last 3 years.
I had to be really selective. I think I even asked you
I don't even remember what I answered.
the morning sketches.
Oh, the morning sketches, yes.
It was really fun to scroll back over the last couple of years and to see my evolution of what I've been working on, but also from where I kind of switched from a procrastinator on finishing to finishing all the things. But I also love how our evolution of crafting, part of that evolution is watching our kids evolve in their creativity. So your daughter enjoys art, but she also does other stuff. I know my kids are all super crafty, but how their creativity manifests is a real evolution for me as I parent them. So my eldest son would say that he's not creative, but he will sit at his computer and he will code up these amazing neural networks, and he will create texture packs in Photoshop to put into Minecraft. And it blows my mind what he can do. And it's just a different form of creativity. All four of them have this real passion for performing arts. So that's another evolution in creativity. I never did a lot of drama stuff. They love doing projects and drawing and sewing, and it's really fun for me to see that evolution now come full circle, and the next generation starting their own cycle of evolution through their own creative process.
I'm just having a think back to high school drama. So I just took drama because it was just another subject and I needed something to fill the gaps. We had to do a play, and I remember doing a lot of the ideas for it. And I had a love of 70s clothing, and I loved the Buffy movie. So I remember writing the cheer into our script. It just went down like a lead balloon with the teacher. So, that was my drama story. I obviously didn't get into drama after high school. This is the extent of my dramatics at the moment, is doing a podcast.
Well, that's really interesting, actually, because I guess this is a form of performing art, isn't it? It's
Is it? Don't tell me that. I'll stop talking.
conversation as an art form, because podcasting clearly forms part of our evolution of creative content sharing, I guess. Like, we've both blogged for a long time, we've both Instagrammed for a long time. Podcasting feels like a natural progression of that, in the same way that our crafting has evolved and grown over the years. Podcasting is just another part of that as well, but I've never considered it like that, as performance art.
Well, podcasting has sent us really wide.
It has, hasn't
stretched
it?
us. Yeah. But it's also, I feel like, even though it's the talking and the performing and putting myself out there, this circles back to the early, I think 2012, when we were getting into writing and we were doing a lot of writing races and stuff together. So for me, it actually rolls back into the writing and having to actually use my brain and think about what we're going to talk about. And if you're following along, we
Yeah.
are trying to do regular blog posts over on the blog, and that's been another thing that we've circled back to, is blogging this week.
It's been interesting for me in that I find the podcast is starting to influence that blog a little bit, because we're talking a lot about our process and connection and all that kind of stuff. I find that's actually influencing what I'm choosing to write about on my personal blog. We've been starting to share some more thoughts on our ministry blog, but even over on my personal blog, I'm writing a lot more introspective style posts. I'm doing a lot more thought posts and musings. I've written about internet friendships, and I've written about, on content versus creating and which comes first. So lots of stuff like that floating around in my brain and on my blog, which for me is a direct evolution inspired by the podcast.
It's interesting, isn't it? You know what I'm realizing? We are circling around the evolution with the width of our crafts. I read an article, must have been 2019, and I will see if I can find the article online. So the entire article was about, instead of going wide, you go deeper with your creativity. So instead of, and it was a big thing with the journals, because in the journaling world, there's a lot of, oh, you have to have this journal or you have to have that journal, and then
Becomes a
this
cycle.
entire, yeah, so it's like this cycle, and then you find yourself like me with all these journals, and it's like, what was I thinking? At the start of 2020, I was like, okay, I'm going to start going deeper rather than wider. But every time we get onto these conversations, how we're going wide here with our evolution, we might be going wide, but we actually are delving deeper into that particular craft, if that makes sense. And just a
Yes,
few times you've said a few things, I'm like, I can see you're saying you're going wider, but I can see you're actually going deeper. So it's
it
an
is.
interesting thought. Mm.
Yeah, I know you and I have discussed the depth here quite a bit, and we kind of laugh it off, don't we? Because we're like, it's us. We can't go deep. We don't know how to do deep. I feel like that could nearly be an entire podcast all on its own about deep versus wide.
Yeah, I think it actually could be, because it's an interesting one to think of, because I'd never thought of it beforehand. And then when I started thinking about it, I was like, okay, well, I can see it goes back to growth. Still, I believe that when you grow, you still have to go a little bit wide.
I feel like I'm about to start a whole new thought that will be
Yeah,
in
I
that.
know. I'm going to write that down. So stay tuned to season 4. We will be revisiting this in season 4.
Absolutely, absolutely. We would love to know from our audience how your craft has evolved. And are you a wide crafter? Are you a deep crafter? Are you a cycle crafter like us? We would love to know. You can join the conversation over on Instagram at Ministry of Crafty Shenanigans. And you can find all the information from today's episode, including links and show notes, on our website at ministryofcraftyshenanigans.com.